In a quiet American home, police discovered two bodies, a pregnant woman and her brother, both covered in blood. The scene resembled a ritual where family boundaries and taboos were shattered. Investigators soon learned their relationship had long since crossed the line, resulting in a double death. This family story began quite normally. In the suburbs of a small American town, there lived a family consisting of parents and two children, a son and a daughter. The parents had long been considered role models for their neighbors. Both worked, kept their home in order, and maintained good relationships with their neighbors. However, behind a facade of outward prosperity, internal problems lurked. The older brother had been withdrawn since childhood. He was an average student at school and had few friends. His sister, a few years younger, was, on the contrary, more active and outgoing. From an early age, she sought to spend time with her brother, often defending him from the ridicule of his peers. His parents perceived this as a manifestation of strong family affection and saw nothing unusual in it. Over the years, the differences in their personalities became more noticeable. The brother remained in the shadows, rarely interacting with the outside world, his interests limited to household chores and occasional sports. His sister, however, gradually became the center of attention at school, among friends and youth groups. Despite their different developmental paths, their bond remained strong. In adolescence, it became more personal. The brother saw his sister not only as a close friend, but also as someone who could fill his social void. After finishing school, my brother didn't leave the city. He took temporary jobs, helped his father with the housework, and showed little desire to live independently. My sister, meanwhile, enrolled in college in a neighboring town, but returned home regularly on weekends. Around this time, their relationship began to raise questions among acquaintances. They spent too much time together, avoiding other company. Observers noted an excessive closeness that seemed inappropriate even for family members. By the time the parents realized their daughter and son were forming a closed world, it was too late. Any attempts to intervene were met with resistance. The sister insisted that her brother needed her support, while he, in turn, couldn't imagine life without her. These words might have seemed trivial if they hadn't become the basis for a future tragedy. Having moved home permanently after finishing her studies, the sisters cemented their closed-off lifestyle. She had virtually no relationships with men outside the family, and her brother, for his part, sought neither friends nor a life partner. This became fodder for gossip among the neighbors. Some directly expressed their concerns to their parents, hinting at the abnormality of the situation. Soon, the situation became more complicated. Her sister announced she was pregnant. This news came as a surprise to those around her. She didn't reveal the child's father and avoided discussing the matter. People speculated, but the most disturbing rumors concerned her brother. The town began to talk about inappropriate relationships within the family. There was no official confirmation, but her sister's silence and behavior only fueled suspicions. The parents tried to maintain a semblance of normality, but social pressure intensified. At the same time, it was during this period that the brother began to show signs of instability. He increasingly avoided work, withdrew into the house, and spent time alone with his sister. Their interactions seemed strange, close, trusting, yet simultaneously anxious. By the time the pregnancy began, the family had effectively split. The parents stepped aside, realizing they couldn't control the situation. Their children lived by their own rules, which defied explanation. To the outside world, everything looked like a slowly escalating crisis. But for the couple inside their closed world, what was happening had become the new normal. Thus, the first chapter of this story sets the context. An ordinary family gradually found itself at the center of scandal and suspicion. The strong emotional attachment between brother and sister, initially seen as caring, transformed into something more. This became the foundation upon which the tragedy would later grow, culminating in a brutal crime. My sister's pregnancy was a turning point. Until then, their close relationship had been the subject of speculation and gossip, but now the matter had become concrete. My sister hadn't officially identified the child's father, avoided conversations, and evaded inquiries from relatives and neighbors. She responded evasively to my parents' attempts to uncover the truth, claiming it was a private matter. But in a small town, such a secret couldn't go unnoticed for long. Rumors spread quickly. Most notably, the sister barely interacted with men outside the home. Most of her time was still spent with her brother. This fueled suspicions that he might be the father of the unborn child. No one dared to speak about it openly, but the topic of violated boundaries came up more and more frequently in conversations among acquaintances. The situation was complicated by her brother's behavior. He began to display pronounced jealousy. When his sister left the house without him, he reacted irritably and sometimes even aggressively. According to neighbors, he once caused a scene when he noticed an old family friend approaching the house. Such episodes became increasingly frequent. Other signs were also observed. My brother stopped maintaining his previous contact with work, refusing to go to work, preferring to stay home. Meanwhile, my sister acted as if cut off from the outside world. She practically stopped communicating with her friends, didn't participate in social life, and didn't travel outside the city. Her entire existence centered around her brother. Some witnesses claimed to have seen them in situations that could be considered too intimate for their families. For example, in a cafe or a park, they behaved less like brother and sister than like a couple. These observations were discussed outside the family, heightening tension. The parents tried to influence the situation, but their authority was rapidly eroding. The sister categorically refused to discuss her pregnancy with them, and the brother took any comments as a personal insult. Conflicts in the home became regular. As a result, the parents began spending more time away from the family, unsure of how to proceed. As the pregnancy progressed, the situation worsened. Medical workers monitoring her sister also questioned why only her brother was constantly present. When doctors tried to learn the child's father's identity, the woman became nervous and stopped talking. This behavior was recorded in medical reports and later became a key element of the investigation. The brother saw the pregnancy as yet another reason to keep his sister close. He increasingly declared that they should stay together, that the outside world was hostile to them, and that no one would understand their attachment. Such statements confirmed that his perception of reality was distorted. At a certain point, the situation became even more threatening. Neighbors heard loud arguments in the house. The woman was crying, and her brother was raising his voice, accusing her of trying to betray her. These episodes went unnoticed, as the family tried to conceal their internal problems. However, people around her increasingly voiced concerns. Despite the conflicts, there remained moments of closeness that demonstrated more than just familial concern. Some of these were of a nature that could be interpreted as intimate. Such details later became part of the evidence base when the investigation reconstructed the events. At this point, the story had reached an irreversible crisis. The pregnant sister was virtually completely dependent on her brother. He, in turn, was sinking deeper and deeper into obsession. Their closed world became dangerous as social and family control weakened. Thus, the second chapter demonstrates the development of a personal connection that transcended accepted norms. Pregnancy became a catalyst for the relationship's deterioration, heightening tension and leading to events that later culminated in tragedy. The final weeks before the crime were particularly tense. Arguments in the house erupted almost daily. Her sister was already in the late stages of pregnancy, and her physical condition demanded calm, but the surrounding environment was far from calm. Her brother reacted to the slightest changes in her behavior with outbursts of aggression. Neighbors recalled that screams from the house became increasingly frequent, becoming a familiar soundtrack for the street. One of the arguments stemmed from phone call. His sister received a call from a college friend she hadn't spoken to in a while. Her brother perceived this conversation as a threat to their close relationship. He accused his sister of wanting to betray him and leave him. In a rage, he smashed her phone against the wall. Similar episodes began to repeat themselves. He considered any attempt on her part to connect with the outside world an infringement on their special bond. Her brother's behavior increasingly resembled an obsession. He was constantly nearby, controlling her movements and restricting her interactions. Even shopping trips took place under his strict supervision. In conversations with his few acquaintances, he expressed confidence that only he could protect his sister and child. Some family acquaintances later recalled that during those weeks, the brother expressed disturbing thoughts. He said that society won't allow them to be together, and that it's better to leave ourselves than to let others ruin our lives. At the time, these words were perceived as emotional statements, but later they took on a different meaning. Despite the pressure, the sister didn't take decisive action. Perhaps she was held back by her dependence on her brother or fear of him. Some witnesses claim she tried to turn to her mother for support, but the conversations ended in vain. By this time, the parents had virtually withdrawn from the situation, unsure how to intervene. Significantly, household items began disappearing from the house in the days leading up to the tragedy. Investigators later determined that the brother had removed sharp knives from the kitchen in advance, leaving only one. This suggested he was planning a scenario in which he would retain control of the situation. The sister appeared tired and depressed. Medical records indicated elevated stress levels, which could negatively impact the pregnancy. However, she continued to refuse to reveal the identity of the baby's father and even refused to provide an explanation to the doctors. This only increased the tension within the household. The outward signs of impending disaster were becoming apparent. Neighbors noted the family's increasingly secluded lifestyle. The house ceased to be a place for open gatherings. Doors often remained closed, windows curtained. All this created the impression of isolation and preparation for the inevitable. Thus, the third chapter describes the final stage before the crime. The conflict reached its peak. The brother's control over his sister intensified, and the attempts of those around him to intervene proved unsuccessful. This became a direct precursor to the tragic events that soon occurred and forever changed the family's fate. The tragedy unfolded on an ordinary evening. Outwardly, nothing foreshadowed trouble. Neighbors had seen the brother and sister go to the store during the day, buy groceries, and return home without any signs of conflict. However, that same evening, events began to unfold in the house that would mark the final point in their story. According to the investigation, another argument broke out in the family that very day. The sister insisted she contact her friend and discuss her condition, and the brother perceived this as a threat to their shared union. The conversation escalated into shouting. Neighbors heard loud voices and the sound of objects colliding. Several people later stated that the sounds of the struggle lasted at least half an hour. During the conflict, the brother grabbed a kitchen knife, the only one left in the house. The first blows landed on his sister's arms and chest as she tried to defend herself. Numerous traces of blood remained on the floor and walls, later documented by forensic experts. The woman tried to break free and, judging by the location of the wounds, resisted to the last. However, the forces were unequal. Pregnancy made her physically vulnerable. One of the blows landed in the abdomen, which proved fatal to the unborn child. An autopsy confirmed that death occurred almost instantly from massive blood loss. After killing his sister, the brother didn't stop. Investigators concluded that he realized he would inevitably be exposed and decided to commit suicide. Traces found at the scene indicated he had been near the body for some time before turning the knife on himself. The wounds on his body bore characteristic marks, some of them superficial like test wounds, and only the final blow proved fatal. The scene that police witnessed upon arrival was horrific. Two bodies lay side by side, a woman on her back, a man on her side. Blood covered the floor and furniture. The room was in disarray, with overturned objects indicating a desperate struggle. According to police, it was one of the most harrowing scenes they had ever encountered. The parents, who arrived, were the first to witness the scene. They returned home late in the evening and found the doors locked. After calling the police, they went inside with the officers and saw the bodies of their children. The mother's condition required medical attention, and the father was in shock and unable to testify for a long time. Forensic experts meticulously documented every detail. Photographs were taken, fingerprints were collected, and every room was searched. They found the sister's broken phone on the kitchen table, with notes in her handwriting lying nearby. However, no concrete explanations were found in writing. Police immediately identified the main theories: murder followed by suicide or a mutual decision that ended tragically. Forensic examinations later confirmed that the brother initiated the conflict and the sister was the victim. The press quickly picked up the story. City newspapers and television ran headlines about a family secret that ended in blood. The mention of the pregnancy made the case even more resonant. The public demanded answers, and journalists scoured the family for any details. Officials provided only basic information. The identities of the victims had been established, and the case had been confirmed as a murder and subsequent suicide. The possibility of an intimate relationship between the brother and sister was not discussed publicly. However, rumors and unofficial sources fueled interest in the case. Thus, the events of this chapter capture the culmination of the tragedy. A quarrel escalated into violence. A pregnant woman died from knife wounds, and her brother committed suicide. The crime scene became evidence of the final breakdown of family ties and the ultimate manifestation of an obsession that had been building for a long time within a closed world. After the bodies were discovered, police launched an official investigation. The first hours were spent documenting evidence and collecting witness statements. Neighbors described loud screams and a prolonged argument that preceded the tragedy. Some mentioned hearing similar conflicts before, but never of such intensity. This evidence immediately confirmed that the murder was the result of mounting tension within the family. Forensic experts established the sequence of events. An examination revealed that the sister had suffered multiple stab wounds, some of which were defensive in nature. This indicated she was attempting to defend herself. The nature of the blows indicated an emotional outburst on the part of the attacker, which is typical for domestic crimes. After her death, the brother inflicted several wounds on himself, only the last of which proved fatal. There were no signs of third parties at the scene, ruling out outside interference. Investigators paid particular attention to the pregnancy. A medical report confirmed that the woman was in the final stages of pregnancy and that death had occurred not only for her, but also for the fetus. This circumstance sparked further public outcry. Police reports noted that the mother categorically avoided discussing the identity of the child's father. Based on circumstantial evidence and the nature of their relationship, a theory of violated family boundaries was advanced, but this was not officially documented. Investigators questioned the parents, relatives, and friends. The parents admitted they had long noticed a strange closeness between their children, but were unsure how to address the situation. The father claimed he tried to talk to his son, but he responded aggressively and avoided discussion. The mother said her daughter trusted her brother completely and refused to listen to his advice. These testimonies only confirmed the picture of the sister's dependence. Medical specialists provided documents detailing the woman's behavior during appointments. She attended examinations only with her brother, avoided contact with doctors, and abruptly changed the subject when asked about the child's father. All of this, taken together, suggested a relationship within the family that violated social norms. The case attracted media attention. Journalists actively covered the tragedy, emphasizing the unusual nature of the deceased relationship. Articles mentioned rumors of a possible intimate relationship and cited psychologists' comments on the consequences of secluded upbringing and isolation. Public reactions ranged from sympathy for the parents to outright condemnation of the family for their neglect. The official investigation report was released several weeks later. Police ruled the incident a murder followed by suicide. The primary motive was identified as emotional dependency and domestic conflict. It was also noted that the pregnancy heightened tension and was a factor that precipitated the conflict. There was no trial in the traditional sense, as both participants in the tragedy died. The case was closed after the publication of the final report. However, it remains in the archives as an example of complex family circumstances that can lead to extreme violence. The consequences were devastating for the parents. They were left without both children and without their unborn grandson. Social isolation deepened. Many neighbors avoided contact, and the media continued to recount the events for a long time. The family effectively found itself in the shadow of their own tragedy. Thus, the final part of the story records the results of the investigation and its official conclusions. The crime is classified as domestic, caused by personal addiction and an internal crisis. Society has received further confirmation that hidden family conflicts can lead to tragic consequences, leaving only documents and testimonies as a reminder. The story ended with the death of a brother, sister, and unborn child. The investigation revealed that obsession and addiction within the family led to a bloody end. In police records, the case remains an example of how the breakdown of family boundaries can lead to tragedy.